Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here taking a look at the DRF Wednesday race of the day. It is the fifth race at Delaware Park. This one, a conditioned allowance race going the 6 furlong distance on the main track. With this being the race of the day, do note you can get free past performances for this race. Just create that free account at DRF.com and you can access free all access past performances for this race: Classic, Formulator, and Timeform US. Mike, we've got a 7 horse field signed on here. There's some real quality in this race for a Wednesday feature at Delaware.
Yeah, really, really good field here. The favorite's drawn to the outside post spike zone. That's your speed from the outside post, and he's a horse who just loves to win races. But there are some really interesting other players in this race. You do have some layoffs that you're going to have to deal with in this race, but this is a good field.
Yeah, back class is kind of the name of the game for some of these horses. You've got a few coming off layoffs, some that had big seasons in 2024, trying to recapture that former glory. That applies to the 2 runners from the Gary Capuano barn, Shaft's Bullet and Copper Tax. Also, Sunny Breeze returning after running some big races in the middle of last season. So, really intriguing allowance affair. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector to get a sense of how these horses could sort themselves out towards the front end, Mike. And I think it's all going to come down to the break with the number 7 spike zone, because he's had a little trouble getting out of the gate a couple times in his last several starts. But if he breaks cleanly, he's probably going to be in front.
It does seem like being drawn to the outside gate can help him with that as well, David. I think this is a good draw for this horse. I think it's the last 3 times that he's drawn the outside post. He won all of those races. So I think being outside is good for him. But you're right. It's something that you do, especially if he is a short price in here. You do have to be aware that he's broken poorly in a couple of his recent races, and it's really cost him in those spots.
The number 2, Sunny Breeze, does also have plenty of early speed. I don't know if he necessarily needs to be in front to have his best chance, but he could be fresh coming back off a layoff. And even the number 3, Alto Belly, he's shown a lot of speed, albeit on the synthetic surface recently, but he could be a sneaky pace player in this race as well. Let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with the number 1, Shaft's Bullet, who's going to be the bigger price of those 2 Gary Capuano entrants in this race. And Mike, he's one of those that I was mentioning earlier, who's got some really good form from the middle of 2024. He ran some nice races going 2 turns at Laurel and Delaware. He even has a good sprint performance at Delaware in a race that looks like it was carded the same week last year, when he closed to be a good second behind Sir Wellington, going the 3/4 of a mile distance, getting a 92 buyer that day. He went to the sidelines in the summer of last year and was off for, I think, 8 months heading into March of this season. Just looked like he really needed that return race 2 back. They stretched him out last time, and I know he lost by a large margin. I thought that was a subtle step in the right direction, because he went after the leaders that day, took over, and then got challenged by Post Time, of all horses, showing up in an allowance race and was no match for that grade 1 placed runner. But at least he kind of tried to go with that horse for a little bit before paying the price at the end. So you could make the argument he's cycling back up to a better effort.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, each of us, he's only run twice this year, both of them. And he bumped into a streaking horse off the layoff there when they sprinted him.
Yeah.
And then he had post time last time. He couldn't win either of those races. I sort of look at him, David, and I feel like he's more of a 1 turn miler than he is as a sprinter. You mentioned that race a year ago here. It was 6 furlongs and he was second. He did finish ahead of Spike Zone. To me, he was an opportunistic second in that race. I mean, Spike Zone did all the racing and they're on the lead, dueling, putting horses away. The winner came for him. He had to race that horse too. I don't know. I feel like this horse is, I understand why they're cutting him back, but I do feel like he's probably better going a little longer than this.
The number 2, Sunny Breeze, is another horse that had some really good form from the middle of 2024. He won the first 3 starts of his career, ran a bang-up race in the Grade 3 Gallant Bob in September of last season. We'll take a look at the stretch run of that race, where he is battling a classy foe in Ben Tornado all the way down to the wire. Even the 3rd-place finisher in this race, Bucarino, is a really nice horse himself. And then Mike, Sunny Breeze came out of this race, tried another really tough field of 3-year-old sprinters in the Steel Valley Sprint at Mahoning Valley, and faded to 6th in that spot. But you look at some of the horses that beat him on that occasion: Maximus Meridius, world record, even Valentine Candy, the winner of the race. Those are some really classy horses from last season. So can't really fault him for not running so well in that spot. And if he gets back to top form, he's right there with Spike Zone as a top contender in this race.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, we'll see if he needs a race off the layoff here, but if he doesn't, he can certainly go with these horses. He's got speed towards the inside. I just feel like if he's ready to come back running, he's supposed to be pretty tough in here. You mentioned that most recent start. I mean, sometimes you see races from Mahoning Valley and you feel like it's just not that good a field. That was a really good field, and I thought his Gallant Bob was excellent.
I looked up some stats for trader Ned Allard. He does really well off layoffs. 120 to 240 days on the dirt over the past 5 years. He's winning at 33% at a 21 horse sample with a $2.41 ROI. The number three, Alto Belly, like I mentioned, a horse that's got a lot of early speed, but has flashed it against softer fields than what he'll be meeting here. He did win off the claim two back at Turfway Park, wiring a group of horses on the synthetic surface. They tried the turf last time, the William Walker. He was overmatched in that race, Mike. Also got just a nightmare journey through the first quarter mile.
Yeah, exactly. He put a line through the last one. I mean, listen, he's hard to make a case for in this race. It does feel like, he's coming back to dirt in a really tough spot. I can give him credit for having four wins considering where he came from at the start of his career. And, he is 4 for 5 with Lasix in his career, and he gets to race with Lasix on again in this spot.
I mentioned some of these horses having back class. Well, Shake 'em Loose's back class, the number four, comes from all the way back in 2022. And those 2022 races actually aren't that far down in his past performances because he's had some significant layoffs since then. He managed one start in the middle of 2023, or I should say early 2023, had a long layoff before that, had a long layoff after that, not returning until the end of last season in 2024. He missed about a year and a half of action. And like his two races in the fall of last season at Laurel, they weren't terrible, but he just kind of lacked the finish that you want to see from a closer like this in both of those starts. And now returning from another layoff at 6 furlongs, it kind of feels like this is just yet another starting point.
Yeah, exactly. He's hard to take in this race. He's even when he was in good form, he probably couldn't beat these horses, David. He's just coming back from with all the issues he's had, and this is the spot he has to return in, going 6 furlongs against this field. He's hard to make.
Mike, can the number five Runaway Jack ever get back to some of those good efforts that he put forth over this Delaware Park surface in the middle of 2023? Because he just kept improving on each subsequent effort going back to that 2023 season, cycling all the way up to a 95 buyer when he won going this distance in November of that year. But then he had a poor performance at Oaklawn, was off for a really long time, and he had 4 starts earlier this year, and his return from the layoff was okay, but I don't like that he's gone backwards since then.
I don't like that either. And listen, it's not like he was ever a horse, even when he was good, he didn't ever have, a ton of early speed, but now he's got none. I mean, it just feels like he can't even keep up early in these races. And, I don't like his chances if he gets outrun early by this field.
Like, I don't know exactly where he's going to be at from a form standpoint coming off the layoff, but I feel like the number 6 Copper Tax might be one of the better horses in this race because he really proved his quality against some strong competition going all the way back to his 2-year-old season, then right on into a 3-year-old year. Last season, running in races like the Ohio Derby, not being disgraced in the Discovery against some nice horses like Generous Tipper and Tuscan Sky. They went back to Laurel 2-back, got the job done at a stakes event, and then last time when he ended his campaign in December was just in a race that was totally dominated towards the front end, and he was unable to close. They focused on route races for really all of his last season in 2024, but this horse was an effective sprinter going back to the early part of his career, just one that probably is going to need some pace to close into if he's going to have his best chance off the layoff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see. I think he will have the pace to run into here, David. So I think if he's ready off the layoff, he's a super dangerous horse because I agree with you. I think this horse is really good. And, it's easy to, look at his form now and say, of course, they stretched him out. Look how good he is route racing. But this horse, he's won the last 4 times they sprinted him. He's won the last 5 times they've run him around one turn. And, that last sprint, I know it came back at the end of 2023, and it was a narrow win in a stakes race. He was really good in that race. He did not get a good trip in there, and he overcame it to win. I mean, this horse has a lot going from, listen, I saw the 2-1 on the morning line and I got a little disappointed. I don't think I would take that price on him against this field, even though I think he's a major contender if he's ready to go.
Yeah, I could see him drifting up from there a little bit, just having some handicappers having reservations about the layoff. And Mike, you mentioned that James F. Lewis from the end of 2023. That was also a really good field that has aged really well in retrospect. The runner-up in Veigold has since turned into a 90-plus buyer horse, and also ran in that race was Bucarino, who we mentioned has turned into a really nice sprinter himself that was in the running lines of Sunny Breeze. So Copper Tax might be okay turning back to a sprint distance. And then rounding out the field on the outside is the number 7 Spike Zone. We'll take a look at his race 2-back, Mike, which even though it was a loss, this was his career best buyer, a 101, and he ran in that horse that you were referencing earlier, Rominski, who has just been in raging form recently. And these two really put on a show through the early stage of this race and then into upper stretch before Rominski is able to assert himself in the late stages. Spike Zone has lost 4 of his last 5 races, despite the fact that he's gone off at some pretty short prices. But maybe that was a function of the fact that they finally got a little bit more ambitious with him, Mike, because he had won a lot of races in a row, but doing so against overmatched competition going back to the early part of last year.
True enough. I would just also point out to the two of the losses recently, he has huge excuses for. That includes the most recent start there at Parks, where he just totally blew the start behind Buck Arena. I mean, he just had no chance. And there also his return from the layoff in January, totally blew the start of that race, had to rush up, actually ran really well that day, despite not winning. And, he also has that loss at the end of February going 7 furlongs, which he just doesn't want to go. He actually ran really well that day, but 7 furlongs is just too far for this horse. I mean, I still think his form is intact into this race. And I think being drawn to the outside is a big benefit for him. If he breaks well, you'll see him out there running, going for the early lead. And I think he's going to be pretty hard to beat, especially if some of these other horses need to start off the layoff.
Yeah, Mike, I hear you about the outside post, and I agree that's a real positive for this horse. It's going to allow him to find his stride, even if he does break a step slowly. It just always starts to bother me when these speed horses start to have trouble getting out of the gate, because sometimes it can portend a reversal of form coming in the future. And we'll see if that's the case for Spike Zone, who has been so good for so long. Let's go to our picks for this Wednesday race of the day. And Mike, you're going to land on the horse coming off the layoff, or one of the horses coming off layoffs, the number 2, Sunny Breeze.
Yeah, I just wanted to take the upside horse in here. He obviously is going to have to come back close to ready off the left, but I liked what I saw from him last year. I think he's got plenty of room to improve too, and I think he fits really well in here if he's ready to go.
And I have a lot of respect for the number 6, Copper Tax. I've got him in there. But the number 1, Shaft's Bullet, is going to be a better price in this race. He's the other horse that's going out for the same trainer as Copper Tax. And I have a little more hope that he's going to be okay turning back to a sprint distance. And I just feel like he's cycling back up to a better effort. And he does have races from 2024 that would give him a big chance against a field like this. So 1627 for me, 2761 for Mike in the Wednesday race of the day, race 5 at Delaware Park. Good luck if you're playing the races later this week.